for a ride in the cyber bus. Confluence Jake here. We got Ben Breck, Mr. Hanwha.
How you doing, folks? Ben Breck here, Denver, Colorado.
Mr. Benny Factor. So, what's your role over there at Hanwha? Refresh my memory for me.
Business Development Manager for the education vertical. So, Jake, I handle and cover both higher education and K through 12, and specifically focus on grant funding and competitive grant funding for safety and security. Obviously a noble cause to advance that and make it easier for schools to apply, and of course make them aware what's available so they can improve their security posture.
And so grants is something you work with quite a bit there, huh?
Part of our strategy to further the cause, and again to increase access, both access to knowledge and access to expertise to successfully win these funds.
All right, well, so we got Mr. Grants Expert here. I'm assuming we're talking mostly about schools today, right? School grants?
That's all I focus on. That's my expertise, is K through 12 and higher education, correct.
Fantastic. Well, I know that there's some important, dates coming up for some of the grants that are available, some of the federal grants. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what those grants are, and then we can get into some of the timelines and the requirements that schools should be aware of for applying for the grants.
Cool ride, by the way. Love it.
It's
Just kicking back and letting the school bus, emphasis on cool, do the driving. This is great.
Cool bus. Thanks, man. Give me my new office.
The most important grant to know about right now is the School Violence Prevention Program. So the SVPP is the acronym. It is administered by the COPS office, COPS, and funded by the Department of Justice. And it's due June 26th. That's June 26, and up to $500,000 is available. Significant amount of money, and it's phased over 3 years. So schools are applying now, Jake, for a June 26 deadline.
And now, is that $500,000 for all of the schools in the United States, or is that for each school that applies?
So the $500,000 is per application. So it's a competitive grant for $500,000, but the total bucket of money for the United States is between $38 and $48 million. So
okay,
it's important that you know you have up to $500,000 available if you'd like to go for this grant.
Sure, okay. And then, but I guess let's say they sell out of grants, right? At some point in time, it's just gonna run out of money. There's not enough money for all the schools, correct?
Correct, yeah. It's a finite competitive grant, finite defined pool of money. And once it's gone, it's gone. It's a very competitive one, and the success rate is under 50%. Depends on the expertise you hire, and depends on the expertise you may have in-house. So it's important to understand the requirements involved to make sure you're in the best position for success, but it is competitive. And obviously not every school is going to win it. Success rate's under 50%, so be careful who you use to write it.
Oh, okay. Well then, if we gotta be careful of who writes it, what are some options that might be available for the school districts?
If you don't have in-house grant writers or expertise in-house, there are several consultancies out there in the marketplace. We partner with one called EMD, that's Echo Mike Delta, out of New York City, and they focus specifically on SLED, that's state, local government, and education, SLED, SLED grant writing, and specifically safety and security grant writing. So their success rate generally is higher than that 50% or less success rate for the SVPP itself.
Okay. And so if we got June 26th, like what are some steps that the school districts need to make sure they're taking care of, like right now, this week, next week, and the following weeks, in order to meet that 26th of June deadline?
Get started ASAP, as soon as possible. Reach out to either myself, that can point you in the right direction, where to go, some steps you can take. My email address, you'll find it later in this podcast, is ben.brecht. That's ben.brecht @hanwha.com. And happy to get you started with the process as soon as possible. Some steps you can take in the meantime internally is to make sure you have a safety and threat and vulnerability assessment completed and done within the last 3 years. So it needs to be a threat and vulnerability assessment completed by your organization within the last 3 years. Make sure that's done, and if not, get on that as soon as possible. Make sure it's done by a certified professional, obviously. And that can be done by a staff member of your organization as well. It doesn't have to be an external certified expert for threat and vulnerability assessments. Something else you can do, folks, is to go to grants.gov, that's grants.gov, and register for a UEI number. That's a unique entity ID number. Make sure that's done. You likely have one if you've applied for grants in the past, but if you don't, get on that.
All right.
Does that answer your question?
It does, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess it's just that CCPP designation is what allows somebody or an organization to do those safety checks, huh?
You know, frankly, I forget the exact acronym, but CCCP sounds right. There are experts out there that have designations that can complete a threat and vulnerability assessment.
Okay, very good, very good. And then, you know, I run across quite a few school districts that if they're smaller districts, they don't generally have somebody on staff that writes the grants.
Correct.
And so that's something that you can help out with as well.
I cannot know, as a potential beneficiary of the funds, a manufacturer of chipsets, cameras, and video management software, we cannot be involved in the grant application process whatsoever. So that line needs to be bright. I can point you in the right direction, show you the website for the grant program itself. I can give you deadlines. I can give you allowable uses, which is something we'll talk about here shortly, what you can spend the money on, these things. But to actually write the grant, go through with the threat vulnerability assessment, the application, we recommend either in someone internally that is an expert or experienced in safety and security grants, or go with the consultancy or grant writing consultant that is an expert in safety and security grants. Happy to refer you to folks, one being EMD, we talked about them earlier.
Fantastic.
Allowable uses, what can you spend the money on? So if you're awarded this money, it's important to understand that you apply with a specific project, a design, a bill of materials, you get the idea, but it has to be a defined scope. They need to know what you're going to spend the money on. The money needs to be for the purpose of school security, and it needs to be a significant improvement in your security posture. It can be an improvement in technology for expedited notification of local law enforcement. It can be for coordination with local law enforcement. It can be for specific target hardening measures, locks, lighting, access control, metal detectors, obviously camera, whether it be analog or IP. It's important to note though that this year, 2026, you cannot use the funds for vape detection, cannot use the funds for fencing, and cannot use the funds for license plate recognition. True facial rec technology, meaning TSA type facial rec technology. But everything else for technology for coordination with local law enforcement can be used. Some examples: access control, cameras going from analog to IP, federation projects, so unifying your VMS with local law enforcement. And on that note, and this is my final note on the SVPP, is not just schools can apply for this. Understand the purpose has to be for school security, but local law enforcement can also apply for this grant. So local law enforcement can apply for a federation project to unify their VMS with the schools they protect. So notifications or breaches in security are transmitted real time to both the school and local law enforcement.
Wow, okay. That's quite a bit. I wasn't necessarily aware of that. Now, you know, you and I are essentially in the camera business, right? IP cameras to the VMS software. If somebody needs some help, how can we help them? How can we, you know, how can they get a hold of us, or how can they get more information if they have more questions for you specifically?
Email me and we can schedule a call. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 30 minutes. And my email address is ben.brecht, first name dot last name, at Hanwha, HANWHA.com. June 26th is the deadline, don't forget. And so I encourage you to get started as soon as possible. The amount of time required is about a work week for one person. So if you don't have the internal staff, I encourage you to hire an outside expert.
Anything else?
Regarding the SVPP, that's it. I did want to emphasize that this year they've opened another grant program called the COPS Hiring Program, COPS Hiring Program. And so if you have any human resource needs out there, if you need to hire more SROs, train them, understand that there is a COPS hiring program available, and it's due June 25th, a day before the SVPP is due.
Okay. And then I guess this is something though that should really be performed every year. We should be evaluated, right? So even if it doesn't work by June 26th of this year, is it too early to start working on it for next year?
Glad you brought that up. So an important development is they have allowed this year for 2025 folks to apply for 2026 projects. So you can apply for funding now in 2025, June 26, 2025, for a building opening in 2026. So you're allowed to cover expenses and projects for 2026. But yes, generally, Jake, to answer your question, you need to go for this grant every single year and understand that you can apply in subsequent years for projects that don't relate to each other. In fact, they need to be different projects. So a lot of organizations in the SLED space and schools themselves, they'll apply this year for access control, and they'll apply next year for cameras, and the year after that for hiring needs, more SROs training them, and then the year after that for school bus surveillance, etc. So we encourage you to go for and take advantage of this $500,000 with a different project and need any year you possibly can.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I really appreciate that, Ben. It's quite an amazing amount of information, and you're certainly got a lot of experience in this. So is there like a part list or a quote or a list of materials that really generally would go into something like this, so you could supply to say, if these are items that you think you would want, this is what could go into your grant request. Here's a list of, some hardware or software or whatnot.
We cannot. As being a potential beneficiary of these funds, we can't make those types of recommendations. So we encourage you to be faithful to your needs, correctly assess your needs and what ways you can significantly improve your security posture, and apply for those needs and apply for funding to fill those needs. We certainly hope Hanwha is a part of that.
Sure, okay.
But we defer to the experts on that.
That makes sense. That's great intel. We will be doing this on a regular basis, so stay tuned.
Jake, I also want to clarify, in contrast to the SVPP, the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, the NPSGP, is funded by FEMA, whereas the SVPP is funded by the Department of Justice. FEMA opens a nonprofit security grant program every year, and this allows 501c3 organizations to apply for funding for target hardening and for other significant improvements in their security posture and to fill their safety, security, and surveillance needs. So stay tuned. This fall 2025, we anticipate FEMA opening the nonprofit security grant program.
Boy, that'll be a good one.
Will be.
Wow.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, was there anything else we want to share before we sign off?
Jake, I think that's it. Just don't forget, you can email me, ben.breck@hanwha.com, for further information and for referrals to grant security consultants and experts. And I look forward to hearing from you. And thanks for your time today. Thanks, Jake.
All right. Thank you, Ben. All right. Confluence Jake here, signing off. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.